Hello and welcome. When we talked about, Michael and me, when we talked about how we're gonna set a theme for this year's symposium, it was clear rather quickly that it has to be on technology in filmmaking, on technology in creativity. When you wonder why, I think it is relatively clear. Is it because of AI? Yes, mostly. Is it only because of AI? I hope so. I hope not so. And I will quickly show why we chose this topic and why we think that talking about this topic from different perspectives is so important right now. Filmmaking has, and in my opinion, will always be an endeavor or an art form that is informed by technological innovation, by technological invention. Starting from the very beginning, from the brothers Lumiere to the invention of sound, of color in cinema, CinemaScope, Technicolor, full HD, 4K, 8K, everything you see in terms of how we tell stories and through which kind of medium we tell stories has been informed by technological innovations. As someone who comes from serial storytelling or serious, this is one of the slides that I always like to show when I give like this big, it's like a 2-day course, Introduction to Serial Storytelling, showcasing that serialized storytelling has always been informed by technological innovation. So the change of the delivery mechanisms of content, and I use here the unromantic word content, always informs a new way of expressing yourselves. These are just here some examples from the beginning, end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. Obviously here going over into TV series starting at the 50s. This is not something that happened solely in a time where a lot of technological innovations were happening at the same time. This is happening all the time, and you can see it just looking at TV series, looking how the cable revolution or the DVD revolution in the 90s informed a whole new complexity of serial storytelling. Like series like The Sopranos, series like The Wire were only possible because the way they were delivered, the way audiences could interact with them changed radically. We can see it right now, where streaming is forming a new form of hybrid between serial storytelling and feature film sensibilities, creating something unique, which is not wholly a long movie, but it's also not a classical series. Right now, there is a deep change happening, and it is fueled by AI, by artificial intelligence. What this means, and I'm not just talking about the two big kids on the block, ChatGPT and Midjourney, but also about a variety of other tools, of other tool sets that are happening right now, is that you can see there's a change coming, and it's happening fast, and it's happening at a scale that a lot of us may not be able to understand yet fully. What do I mean by this, not understanding it fully? For one of the big things that we noticed when working on topics for Seriencamp conference and for other conferences that we curate is that there's a growing gap between people who are interacting with those tools, sometimes on a daily level, and people who are not even sure what those tools are, how they can use it, and what does it mean for their daily work. So, and it is a topic that, if you look at the headlines, is very current, that is really moving the industry right now in a big way, as you can see with this headline here. I hope you can see that's only a week old. It's from the LA Times, and the writer's strike was the first workplace battle between humans and AI. The humans won. For the humans to win, I would love to know against whom and exactly what did we win. Because if you look at some of the finer points of the compromise between the Writers Guild of America and the studios, streamers, and broadcasters, it's to put it in a nutshell, is you can use AI, or the studio can use AI, but they have to tell the writer that they're using AI. They cannot force anyone to use AI. So if a writer says, no, I don't want to use AI, it's okay. They have that right. And the third, in my opinion, biggest point is that AI cannot be credited as creating source material. So there's always a human creator behind it. It's never the AI itself. If you look at some of the bigger points that are currently moving us as writers, directors, producers, everyone involved in the industry, it seems that some of those finer points are not quite up to the scope of the problem that we're facing. Why? This is something that we want to look at in the next few days and the next few sessions here. But a little bit of spoiler alert, it has to do a little bit with the way that AI generally functions. Because AI has been around for a very long time. Just because we had this iPhone moment of AI last year with ChatGPT and Midjourney going into the mainstream and people suddenly talking about it as if it is something completely new. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's been around for a long time and it's been informing, excuse me, informing what we see and how we see it. AI, generally speaking, and I'm taking a more broader definition here, is that it's using machine learning, like a huge set of data that it needs to learn from, to look for certain kind of rules within those data sets. This is like the deep learning part. This is very rudimentary and maybe taking some of the finer points away from it, but in general you say, thanks for the water. Generally speaking, you can say that huge set of data, learning rules and probabilities within that set of data, and then being able to interact with those set of data through natural language processing. This is like generally what AI makes out AI in the wider sense. AI has been around for a long time, and it has been around as what I would call, or what is generally called, curation AI. That means AI that takes care of what you look at when you open your Instagram stream. That's taking care of what's on your start page of your Netflix, that is used in every news aggregator around there, and that's generally using a lot of data to make sure that what you see is relevant to your interests. What this means, what curation AI is, how curation AI is already influencing what we see and how we see it. This is what we talked with on the last day, because this is, I think, is a really important problem or challenge, because a lot of times you as creators are not even sure that you reach the audience you want to reach, because between you and your audience is always this black box of the streamer, of the broadcaster, and their AIs, their curation AIs. What is new, and this is something that Tristan Harris and Azar Raskin, the two guys between the documentary The Social Dilemma, propose in their new talk. It's called the AI Dilemma. I can only recommend it to anyone interested in this topic, but they call it the Golem class. The Golem class is this new class of generative AIs that uses all those big data sets to generate new stuff. And new stuff I take very broadly because it's text, it's images, it's speech, it's everything that you can imagine. This is what's new, and this is what puts people into fear, that there was, because I think it's the thing where for the first time we see what it can do. When it's running in the background as a curation AI, nobody's really afraid because it's just service that we are being serviced. It's just a machine doing its job. Suddenly we have a machine doing a job that we thought is a very human kind of job. A friend of mine who I currently talk to, he's a programmer, so he comes from a very technical side. He says that this is like the moment we're in right now. We're moving from this side of the cottage industry of people at home creating cloth for shirts and trousers, moving to this era where you have big wool machines, and he calls it, not only he, but a lot of people call it the third industrialization. And it's gonna have immense impact on how we live, how we work, what we do, how we do it. And in the next 2 days, hopefully through some of the case studies, some of the topics we talk about, we always have the possibility to zoom out a little bit and look what this means. Because this here was happening over the course of 3 decades, 4 decades, end of the 19th century. Right now, this is happening in the course of not even half a decade and is impacting us very quickly, and the results will be felt deeply. Some of the results that people talk about when they talk about how generative AI will influence how we work and how our workflows will be looking like, are talking about more efficiency, more creative freedom, lower barriers of entry, and greater personalization. What this means is more efficiency, that tasks that before took you a little bit longer, now through generative AI can be shortened, it can be much more concise and precise. More creative freedom means that you can create stuff that you never thought was possible before. Anyone who worked a little bit around with Midjourney, through a little bit of prompting, a little bit of input into the machine, can create the greatest, best looking pictures, and the more refined your prompting gets, the better the results get. So here the creative freedom part plays in. Low barriers of entry is that the part where people before took a long time to learn their craft, to hone their craft, to come to the point where they're able to produce, for example, that kind of image. Now you can do it without ever learning anything about that kind of craft, of that kind of image generation. And finally, personalization. I think this is the big topic that will come towards especially the content industry. And content industry, I mean everybody creating media in the next few years, is that we're already seeing it in, for example, film, feature film, and series distribution, that those tools can be used to create content for people who before couldn't be reached by content. This means, for example, localization of content, that you very easily, even as a small or mid-sized producer, can produce movies, series for 150 languages out there by using technologies that allow you to translate very quickly, that dub very quickly. And it's just one of the examples how you can get more personalized content. What this means on a larger scale, we'll talk about with Johanna Koljonen also on the end of the second day. A lot of the questions that rise a little bit from this looks like it's set in stone, and it's like you cannot escape these kind of implications of the application of a new technology. Some of the topics that arise from this is the first question: can you afford to not adapt to technology? So can you afford to say, nah, I don't really want to have to do anything with AI. I don't want to work with it, and I want to stick with the ways that I knew how everything works. Second spoiler alert: no, I think it's going to be rather difficult. Why do I think this? And this is maybe a little bit of a zooming out a little bit from this. It's an idea stemming from Daniel Schmachtenberger. He's a big systems thinker, so that means he is someone who looks at all the different systems that make up human culture, human technology, human endeavor, and looks how they interact with each other. I can only recommend, if anyone's interested, listening to his podcasts. He's one of the most genius people out there right now, looking at how we are on a global scale, how we ended up where we are right now. He brings an argument that says that the environment we're moving in, that means a competitive environment where people compete with each other on a limited set of resources, and you have a technology that allows you to work more efficiently, you will have to adapt to that technology, or you will not be able to compete. You will be left behind. So this sounds very intuitive and very natural, but what this means in terms of using those tools, we will only see in the next couple of months and years, when some of the tools we're gonna showcase here in the next few days are gonna become more mainstream, if they become more pronounced in the way you work with your medium of choice, if it's classic filmmaking, feature filmmaking, if it's docu-filmmaking, if it's serious filmmaking, if it's games, if it's animation. What comes a little bit with what Schmachtenberger calls like this multipolar trap. That means a lot of different actors competing in a system with limited resources. Is the second biggest thought that I hope runs a little bit through the discussions that we have in the next few days. Is that every technology changes the spiritual and mental landscape of the people using it. This is someone and anyone who has worked a lot in the last few months with something like ChatGPT might have noticed that the way you interact with information, that you interact with the information out there in the net is changing completely from how you use, for example, a search engine. And it not only changes your workflow, it also changes the way you think and interact with something like this. Schmachtenberger here takes an example that's a little bit more fundamental. He talks about the adaptation of animals for animal husbandry, for tilling the fields. Like in his example, he goes back to the few couple of thousand years and says, the moment you decide that you want to domesticate an oxen, put it in front of a plow and use it to till your field, the moment it changes your completely relationship to the world around you. It changes the way you look at animals, you look at how the animal interacts with you. And he thinks that the same thing is happening right now with AI. Professor Dr. Elena Esposito from the University of Bielefeld, who's a communications philosopher, says that this change of what it means for the mental landscape of us as a human society will be the same as the invention of script, of written language, the same as the invention of the printing press, and this is like the third big step. It's going to change how we think and how we interact with the world around us. The last point I want to make, and that's about it, is one that I find the most fascinating. It is the first technology that we created that knows all the stories that we've told about it. When we invented something like planes, a plane doesn't know all the stories that we've told about flying. AI knows, depending on how you define knowing, but it knows all the stories that we've told about AI. There was a wonderful time frame that was about beginning of this year, where ChatGPT had, it was possible to circumvent certain barriers that were put in place for AI, and you could get ChatGPT to act as an evil AI. So like a AI gone rogue, like something you've seen out of Skynet or something you've seen out of science fiction movies. How is this possible? This is only possible because ChatGPT knows, against, in quotation marks, all the stories we've been telling about bad AI. And it also knows all the stories that we're telling about good AI. So this is the first time that the technology we're creating knows our mental landscape of it, of how we look at it and how we think it will interact with it. Here are just some examples of stories we've been telling about technology, and I think you can look at each of them and see what kind of mental image is it forming of technology. And I think it's going to be interesting to look also as a red thread running through the next 2 days, to look at how the interaction with those new kind of technologies is also built upon our understanding, formed by watching these kind of movies, of reading books by Isaac Asimov or Philip K. Dick or something like that. Apart from stories about technology, and this is what was always part of the way movie making, filmmaking, series making, documentary filmmaking works, we're also using it in new ways to tell those stories. And I don't want to dive deeper into this, because for this I have a wonderful expert here, the first of a series of experts that we're going to talk to in the next 2 days. Before I introduce him, Max Penck, I always have to read the title because I mix it up, Creative Innovation Director at David & Martin. He's gonna show a little bit or talk with us a little bit about how generative AI is already influencing workflows, work fields in the ad agency that he works in, and what does it mean for the future? What kind of changes are already happening through which kind of tools, and what can we maybe take from this for other industries where something similar will happen? After that, we are very glad to be able to show the movie Saudi Runaway by Susanne Meures, a docu-film that on the first glance doesn't have to do that much with technology. How and why it interacts very closely with technology, and how we can also maybe look at it and get ideas of how we're going to interact with AI and social media is something that I'm going to talk with her in the Q&A after Saudi Runaway. And we're really happy to be able to screen this film, because this film usually is not available for screening anymore. The reasons why we're going to talk about later. Tonight we have a wonderful set of guests here talking about AI and creativity. One of them, to be honest, I was really glad to read that he's here, because he is one of my favorite comic book artists, Dave McKean. He's going to talk here with Erwin Feiersinger, the photographer, Boris Eldagsen, Jochen Laube, and head of Animation Institute, Dr. Jan Pinkava, about this emerging field of creativity and AI, and what that means for artists, what it means for people working in the field of industry. Tomorrow we're gonna look at White Mirror, a movie generated completely with AI tools. It works as an anthology. It was premiered at Venice Film Festival. And we're gonna talk with two of the creators behind it about the processes, what kind of tools they used, what it meant for their work on the movie. Before rounding off the day with a talk with Johanna Koljonen, a media analyst and one of the most brilliant people out there, talking about technology, about the future of the media industry, of the film industry, of the TV industry, and someone we're very glad that she can join us via Zoom, because she is someone who usually is like booked months in advance. So we're really looking forward to talking with her. So without much further ado, I give over to Max, who gives a short keynote before we dive into the panel talk with him.